counting you down to that Fed decision at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. This moment is different. We're not used to this. If your only experience of Wall Street is the post-GFC world, you're very, very used to the hand-holding. Typically, going into any decision, you know ahead of time what's going to happen, and if you don't, then make sure you know. This is different. Overwhelmingly, the consensus on Wall Street is no change of hold later on this afternoon, but there is an appreciation. There is a small risk they might do something different because we have a new Fed chair that is not willing to provide quite the same guidance. Mike McKee has more from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, John. There's 19 members of the Open Market Committee, and 12 of them vote, but only one matters today, and that is the new chair, Kevin Warsh. What he thinks will probably carry the day. As you mentioned, the economist community is pretty much overwhelmingly convinced they will stay on hold, although Wall Street still gives it a 35% chance that they surprise us with an increase. Last time they did that, June of 2022, with that 75 basis point hike. There are no economic forecasts or dot plot today, so we'll all be listening for what Mr. Warsh has to say. Now, it's not unusual that he could surprise us. The history of new Fed chairs is that they tend to raise rates very quickly after taking office. Paul Volcker did it 2 months into his term. Actually, the only one of the last four who did not was Janet Yellen, who inherited us the middle of the great financial crisis recovery, and it took 22 months before they raised rates. But everybody else was willing to raise rates right at the beginning of their term. So the questions going into this afternoon are, will there be any dissents, and will the statement recognize any dissents? Last time, the statement didn't mention the individual votes, just the vote total. How will Warsh explain the decision? Either way, what will he say about what other members of the committee thought? What are he and his colleagues watching? This is maybe the most important question because it gets at the idea of what's their inflation framework, what's their reaction function, things that he has been reluctant to discuss. And that leaves us with the question of, will September be priced in post-meeting? It is priced in right now. Economists and market participants think that there is a better than 100% chance that we're going to see a rate increase on September 18th. The question is, where do we end up when the Warsh press conference is over? It is very different. And, of course, John, you have to shake your head when you see oil prices this morning, just when they start to go back down, and maybe help Warsh make the comment, make the case for keeping rates unchanged. Here we go again.
Of course, we don't know where it's going to be 5 hours from now, either, for that matter, Mike. It is a change. Can I just ask you, as a journalist who's in that room and has sat in front of central bank chief after central bank chief over the last several decades, Mike, how your approach is going to change to the kind of questions that you ask this Fed chair? No one wants to be on the receiving end of a two-word answer or any answer that involves task force. How is your approach different to this moment too, Mike?
Well, I think we're going to be looking for people to ask specific questions about specific thoughts as opposed to more general questions along the lines of what is your reaction function, because that could be easily parried. But how he looks at the oil price increases that we've seen recently. Does he think they're inflationary, or is it time to look through them? And what is it that he thinks the task forces should accomplish? When you look at the Wall Street Journal story from yesterday, the anecdote about Chris Waller saying it's not like anybody hasn't thought of this stuff before. What does he think of that?
Can read it out to him, Mike. Looking forward to it. Michael McKee with the latest down in Washington, D.C.